Sam, on the other hand, his mission is to destroy the next Lewis and Polkin. He hates the idea of anyone challenging his supremacy as an author. This is The Green Writer
with S.D. Smith
and Brett Harris.
Brett Harris, I have exciting news for you. We are doing a show together. That's
what's happening.
That's what's yeah.
Okay, yeah. Cool.
So I'm very excited. We're going to do this together. You and I don't know who will be probably the main star. That's left. I mean, I think we'll leave that for me to decide a little bit later. But I'll just say you're in the running right now. You're probably top two of contenders for that. But we're gonna this is going to be a very cool show, I believe, and it's going to be all about serving and loving and giving good gifts to young writers, which is something that's very much in your wheelhouse, and it's in my heart too. How's that sound to you? Are you up for the challenge?
It sounds great. I think we can battle it out for supremacy, for stardom, and for legend status.
It's important, I think, that there's conflict, because if we come on here and we're just like a couple of nice Christian guys, just like, encouraging one another, loving one another, standing together arm in arm on a new endeavor. I mean, does that get the ratings? Does that bring in the crowds, or does tension,
Yeah, I think we can learn a lot of lessons from, reality TV and the way they try to manufacture a lot of tension and conflict. So
that's manufactured. You're saying that's not.
I'm sorry to burst your bubble. Yes, but that's very manufactured. I have friends who've been involved in that world.
With a face like with yours, that doesn't surprise me.
What's really going on behind the scenes. So
Hollywood Harris, that's what they call you.
What are we here to talk about today? I mean, I like criticizing and conflict, but what's the first thing we can give our listeners and viewers today?
So my thought is, a lot of writers end up collecting quotations. I don't know if you've done this in your life, but there's, I've over the years I've actually loved it. Like some of my favorite author website when I was like first working in this field, I would inspire me to go find, like, a lot of author websites would have a collection of quotations. So I started just stealing those, like Robin Hood kind of situations. I'll steal from them, and part of my heart is to share with the poor. That's what I call our audience, the poor. The poor. Sometimes I think of the longer title, "Poor Unfortunate Souls." That's another one. Kind of the. I was at a work thing years ago, back when I had a real job, and one of the ladies presenting talked about the poor unfortunate souls. So like me and my friends, that's what we called each other for the rest of our career. Basically, was poor unfortunate souls. So it's a loving and affectionate term. But I would collect these quotations, and in my computer, the file that those were under was, I couldn't think of what to call it. So I just called it dope quotes. Like, these are quotes that are dope. It has nothing to do with narcotics. So don't, label, this is not that kind of a show. This is a family friendly show. But dope as in cool, positive, nice. And so that was my file. And so I would start sharing these on social media every once in a while. And I would call it, S.D. Smith's dope quotes curation. It's a bit of a mouthful. But I thought, why not share a dope quote with our audience, our beloved audience of wonderful people that doesn't exist yet, and give them a good gift. And I get your reaction to the dope quotation, and we talk it through. What do you think?
Sounds amazing. Hit me with one. I want to hear a dope quote.
Okay, so we start off with a very little known author. His name is Clive Staples Lewis. A lot of people haven't heard about him. I'm trying to get the word out there. A lot of people are like, Green Ember, everybody talks about it. And I'm like, what about the Chronicles of Narnia? Just give it a chance. That's all. Mm-hmm. That's what but it sometimes takes a lot. But in Lewis's dedication to his goddaughter, Lucy Barfield, I believe, in The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, he has this to say: I wrote this story for you, but when I began it, I had not realized that girls grow quicker than books. As a result, you are already too old for fairy tales. And by the time it is printed and bound, you will be older still. But someday, you will be old enough to start reading fairy tales again. And the quotation I want to grab out there is that someday you'll be old enough to read fairy tales again. And a lot of people have found significance in this quotation. I wonder if you, Brett Harris, have discovered that same significance.
I actually have, because interestingly enough, I went through a phase in my life where as a young person, I just read all the fiction, all the stories I could, probably up until the age of 13, 14. And I don't know if our listeners, if our viewers have had this experience, but I actually felt like I'd run out of good books to read. Like I'd
Mm,
read all of them because my parents did such a great job. They filled our house with books. They really curated them. The older I get, the more I'm just amazed at how my parents, filled our home with good things for us to just feast on, including, a bookshelf in every room of the house except the bathroom. And so it was, seven kids. You couldn't let people read in the bathroom. It would just there would be a line and it would become a problem. So, but we were always reading, and I was reading primarily stories that up until the age of 13, 14, and I really felt like I ran out of good books to read. And then I shifted to reading nonfiction. And so I actually had a long series, a long uh, season in my life where I wasn't reading stories. Almost like, again, I felt like I'd outgrown them, or I'd, kind
mm,
of gone through everything that was there. And so it was actually a really beautiful thing as an adult, in college in part, but then also just in my adulthood. And as I've walked through some harder things in life and ups and downs, to return to stories, to return to fairy tales and fiction, both stories I had previously read, and come to them with fresh eyes and realize how much more depth and power was in them,
mm.
but also discover new stories, amazing stories that, some of which I missed back then, or some of which have been published since I was 14. And it's just beautiful. I think there's something about stories that deeply speak to us at all ages, and we can get to that point where we think we've oh, that's childish, we've outgrown it, but really we need it. And I think once we get old enough, we see the wisdom in coming back to stories.
Yeah, Lewis, even in the Voyage of the Dawn Treader, which has the greatest opening line in history, which was what is it? There was a boy called Eustace Scrubb, and he almost deserved
Oh
it.
yeah, Eustace Clarence Scrubb, and he almost deserved it.
Yeah, but one of the big problems with Eustace, of course, was that he read all the wrong books, and they were big on industry, and they were big on nonfiction, on grown up topics, and they were very short on dragons and witches and fairy tales and the power of those kinds of stories. And I think it is interesting that sometimes parents are really suspicious of those kinds of stories, and I think that's probably fair. We can talk about that another time, but partly because they are really powerful. Like fiction is really powerful to inform and to shape like the things we love, who we love, what we love. So that I think it is really profound. And there's a kind of immaturity to that notion that I've got to fill my mind with facts, and I'll be grown up. And that's there's no knock on nonfiction. I've met several nonfiction authors. One is Hollywood Harris himself here, uh, with uh, you and your brother have written two really amazingly high selling, top selling, great selling,
Yeah,
wonderful.
Sam, it's called Bestselling.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
Brett, best selling
yeah.
Brett. That's
Best-selling
what
books. No.
best
Uh,
selling Brett. Hollywood Harris. I'm coming up with a lot of good names here.
now Sam has sold probably twice as many books as me,
Who's
but he's
counting?
also about three times older than me. So, so it's okay. I've got some time to catch up.
Yeah, yeah. Good luck. It's
No,
it's it's a tortoise and the hare situation kind of a thing. There's plenty of time.
yeah.
But you are going at a very very slow pace. Just
You see, I kind of think of myself as more of the hare.
that cuts me so deep, and there's so much pain. We've got to. If you're watching this show, then you can see the reflection off of my head. and the pain in my heart that's happening right now. I got to deal with this guy. Hopefully you're listening, because I mean, I don't. If he comes off better listening as well, that's really going to be devastating. But anyway, you've written nonfiction, and nonfiction's wonderful, and I hope to write nonfiction someday.
Oh, I would love to read. I would love to read some nonfiction from you, Sam. So let's bring this home to our young writers, because we're talking about being old enough to read fairy tales again, and I hope all of them are still actively reading and engaging with powerful stories. But also, I think there's the question of writing your own, and so I'd love to talk about that as we kind of get into this next segment of our show.
Great, great. The next segment, we're out of the dope quotations section, and we're into whatever best-selling Brett has to share with us.
Well, I have a topic of discussion for us today, and that topic of discussion is the question of the next C.S. Lewis. So we're talking about this quote from Clive Staples Lewis, and I think all of us grew up really deeply impacted by the Chronicles of Narnia and other books that Lewis wrote. And so there's this question, and I've heard it asked. I've seen discussions online, and I've just felt that same longing in my heart of like, where how can we get more of this? How can we get more stories like this that are so highly excellent in their art, in their craft, have this broad appeal, and that are rooted in a Christian worldview, one that has hope and shines some light in the darkness, even while acknowledging the hard that's in the world. So I'd love to talk about the next C.S. Lewis and have a little debate,
Mm.
manufacture a little conflict and tension between us, because I have said for years that my mission with my writing programs is working with young writers is to raise up the next C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien.
Mm.
Um, and my goal is to do that by 2050, which is the bicentenary celebration of the Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe first being published.
Mm.
Sam, on the other hand, his mission is to destroy the next Lewis and Tolkien. He hates the idea of anyone challenging his supremacy as an author of excellent fiction. And so I just want to have a little debate about that, Sam. Like, to share
Yeah,
your perspective on the next C.S. Lewis, kind of where you're coming from, and then let me destroy those arguments, and then we'll close.
with your experience in nonfiction, just take me apart. If you do, I'll just make something up. I'll build a world where I can be right. No, I completely disagree with you, and I think that's wonderful for this. And I wondered if we would have some actual conflict here, because I feel like maybe sometimes I'll visit I'll visit the Young Writers Workshop that you run, and we'll do like questions with some of the young writers there. And I feel like maybe we've touched on this maybe a year or two ago, somewhere along the lines, but maybe not. But I do think we have a kind of a different perspective on this. And my perspective is we don't need another C.S. Lewis, and that 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 we what we need is whatever God raises up next. That if we needed C.S. Lewis, he would still be alive, and if we needed J.R.R. Tolkien, he would still be alive. And that what we need is not for young people. And maybe we'll have some points of conflict and points of agreement, but I kind of think it's the wrong thing for a young writer to focus on. I think they need to write like they write, and they need to find their own voice. My dad used to say, you know, that I can't preach like Billy Graham, but Billy Graham can't preach like me. And he may have picked that up from somebody else, but that the whole idea of like, yeah, he's just sort of a simple country boy preacher, but like that he's got his own gifts and his own things to bring to his audience, whether it's really small or really big. And I think that it's really important for young writers to focus on the gifts that they have and what they have to offer. And there's a value, I think, in imitation. There's a value in at especially early on in your career, even doing things that are, writing in someone else's world, that kind of thing is fine. But I think as you grow, you get your own voice and you have your own gifts and you share your own stuff. And so that's a little bit of a different perspective. Do you agree with that, or does that hit you does that make you furious?
Yeah. Well, I mean, as it says in Proverbs, one man seems right until another man comes and cross-examines him. So it sounded very, it sounded compelling and interesting and thoughtful, until I start poking holes. No,
I thought you were talking about the other way around. Okay, I
uh,
got
no, no, no.
you're the second man in
I'm the
the
second
proverb.
man.
Okay,
See,
I got
so
I got
no, actually, I really do agree with what you're saying, and I think that this is providing an opportunity to clarify what I mean by raising up the next C.S. Lewis and the next J.R.R. Tolkien,
Yep.
because it doesn't mean we need more Oxford professors sitting in a pub smoking their pipes and writing these specific types of stories.
Yeah.
And what I have in mind more is we need to give young writers permission to dream big. We need
Good.
to give them permission to shoot for the stars. My parents used to share a dope quote with us that said, reach for the stars. You might not get one, but you won't end up with a handful of mud either.
Hmm.
And what I think of when I think of Lewis and Tolkien is I kind of think of the at least in the last 100 years, these are the Christians who were achieving the highest levels of artistic excellence and doing it in a way that wasn't just good for a Christian doing it, but was just good. Period.
Yeah.
Everyone could recognize the quality of
Hmm.
what they were doing, the craft skill that they had, and then they were reaching our culture in a more broad way that had a powerful impact. And they were doing it actually at a time when culture was very much non-Christian and moving away
Yeah.
from faith and moving away from hope, and they were trying to bring something back. And it just reminds me very much of the time in which we live today. And so I don't think the next Lewis will next necessarily even be a man. It absolutely could be a woman. It could be someone of
I
a
thought you were
different.
gonna say. I thought you were gonna say alien.
It could be an alien. Who knows? It could be a different ethnicity. I mean, just wanting to be clear, like this is not about trying to act like, talk like, write
Yeah.
exactly like Lewis and Tolkien, but to achieve the artistic excellence, with the broad cultural impact from a Christian worldview. And so
Yeah.
that's my heart, is that young people would feel free to dream that big and to realize, you
Hmm.
know, someone's got to do it.
Yeah.
SD Smith is out here trying his best, but no, anyway. And
Falling so short.
this is actually a point I do want to make. I really think we have so many great Christian authors who are already filling these shoes, who already are stepping. Maybe they're filling the shoes collectively, right? Like but we. I don't want to put down the fact that we've had so many incredible Christian authors, and I think of people like SD Smith and Andrew Peterson and with the Green Ember series and the Wingfeather Saga. And I think of some of these stories as you know modern day Chronicles of Narnia type of
Mm.
stories. So I absolutely think we have people who are carrying on that mantle. But my heart, as that 14-year-old who ran out of books to read that could thrill me and speak to me so deeply. I was like, I just want more. I want more
Yep.
and more. And we need, as a culture, we need more of these books. We need more of these stories. And and if we can do more to raise up that generation of young writers who are able to aim that high,
Hmm.
I think that is a beautiful thing. I think it's going to be so good for the world and good for the kingdom of God.
I love it. I'm with you 100%. And I honestly am praying for that same thing. And just, yeah, we don't need copies. And I think, again, we can get overcritical of like people who are into that sort of thing. I've been an Anglophile my whole life. I love, it started with my papa who went to England in World War II. And he just came back with this. He loved English poetry, and he loved so many things about England. So I grew up in the holler of West Virginia, kind of a hillbilly out in the sticks, with a love for English poetry. So Lewis and Tolkien coming along in my life was just like, oh wow, this is the kind of thing that we love. And so that you can't. I'm not. Don't be too hard on yourself if you'd like to go have tea in Oxford. That's great,
Yeah.
but yeah, find your own voice, and you will eventually. I think that's and aim for that. And also there's a little bit of like, be faithful where you are, and be faithful with the stories that you're telling right now, and try to give a good gift to your own audience, and see what God does with that. See what God does with you. But I like your emphasis on, like, let's try for quality. Let's try for more than just being, um, getting a message across, or some of the lame sort of cop outs that we do sometimes with religious fiction or religious arts in the modern age. And let's recover some of this spirit that, the Lewis and Tolkien were really heirs of a world that was going away in so many ways, which is a world where Christians dominated the arts, where the church was a massive funder and appreciator. That was the place for the arts for centuries. And so I think Lewis, that they must belong to a world, like you said, that was disappearing, and we're almost like a bridge. They could be a bridge to that happening again. So I'm very, very hopeful of that, and I'm excited. I hope you mentioned me and Andrew, and I think Indy Wilson's 100 Cupboards series is a fantastic modern series, very American fantasy, which I love that. And so there are things happening, but I think of people, those of us doing it now, as almost like, can we be the forerunners of a lot
Mm.
better storytellers coming through? And that's my hope and prayer
Mm.
too. So I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, and I hope that this show can really be a place where we encourage, you know, this next generation of young writers, that they can stand on your shoulders and learn from your experience, and anything I can add as a cheerleader and coach and mentor as well, and that we can see again. This is not about a rush. It's not about, Lewis and Tolkien were not writing the Chronicles of Narnia and the Lord of the Rings in their teens or their
Mm.
20s. They were laying the groundwork. They were engaged in writing in a serious way, but it took decades for them to gain the skills necessary. And
Mm.
I don't know how long this show will run, but I hope it can be a support for all of you as you
Yeah.
pursue excellence in storytelling, in writing, in myth making,
Yeah.
and that in that legacy of Lewis and Tolkien, God will be glorified and people will be impacted and lives will
Mm.
be changed.
I love that. And that's our heart. And I think that's what you do. Like, that's your thing, is you encourage and equip young writers. Like, that's, you do that all the time. And that's not all you do, but that's a big thing you do that I see. And I love that you have a heart for them. I am walking this walk, that's my life and I have such a heart. I've been asked by so many in letters and on book tours and that kind of thing, just questions about what I want to write stories. I want to be a writer. And so I've been dreaming of, like, how, for years, thinking through, like, how do I answer those questions with a heart of love and with a desire to serve. And so I believe that this show will be something where we can give those gifts in a big way. I hope to a bunch of writers out there. And I'm excited about the fruit that can come from what we're sharing. I do think it will be useful, and I think it'll be encouraging, and I think I don't know that, and I hope that we're offering a unique gift. I think we are.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's wrap up our first episode here with prayer, and I'm just going to pray a blessing over everyone listening. Lord, I thank you so much for this time. I thank you for Sam. I thank you for the opportunity to do such a fun thing together, and we do pray that it would be a blessing, that it would be a gift to young writers, to older writers who find us. They are welcome to parents, to teachers, to educators, to anyone who has a heart for raising up the next generation of excellent Christian storytellers. I pray that you would bless and guide us as we embark on this first season, that you would guide our discussions, that we would bring truth and goodness to our audience, and that we'd have a lot of fun along the way. We thank you that you are a God of joy, that you created laughter, that you created fun, and that you created that you are a storytelling God. And I just ask that you would be with us. And we pray all of this in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. Well, that's a wrap on this episode of The Green Writer.
Thanks for listening.
Now would be a good time to subscribe so you don't miss a new episode.
And then share this episode with a friend.
We believe in you,
and we're on your side.